Welcome. The Rancho Board of Education meeting for Monday, January 11th, 2021 is now called to order. We will start tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance given by Catherine Cullen. If all will arise, and please mute your microphones.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Board Member Cullen. Jane, can you take a roll call for us?
Yes, I will. Madam President Galbraith,
Present.
Vice President Moore,
Present.
Secretary Scott,
Present.
Board Member Cullen,
Present.
Board Member Coleman.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a quorum present tonight. So first, I'd just like to welcome everyone to our meeting, the first meeting of the year. We also like to welcome Carrie Plant, who's the Vice President over at AMREP, who we will hear more from later on in this meeting tonight. But welcome. We also like to welcome our district, all of the different people from our district office who will be presenting tonight. And also recognize that Dr. Cleveland is on with us tonight. So with it being our first meeting of the year, per policy, we reorganize the board every year. I do want to apologize. There are some other things that we'll have to do to reorganize in our next meeting because I did not put them on to the agenda tonight. And so those will have to be taken care of at our next meeting. But we will first start with the nomination for board president. And so now the floor is open for nominations for board president.
Madam President, this is Noreen Scott. I would like to nominate you to continue, Amanda Galbraith, to continue as president of our board. I think you've done a fabulous job under very difficult circumstances. And first of all, I would like to applaud your efforts and the time you've put in. And I would like to request that you continue to serve.
Thank you, Secretary Scott. Is there a second?
Board Member Coleman, and I second.
Second. Okay, are there other nominations that anyone would like to give at this time for president of the board?
No.
Okay. Jane, can you take a roll call vote for us on this?
I will. Yes, no vote for Amanda Galbraith, President. Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Cullen, Board Member Coleman,
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for saying yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you so much. It has been a crazy year. A couple people asked me, and honestly, I would say last March I was counting down the days, but I'm happy to serve again in this capacity. I think we've really worked well together, and so I appreciate having the opportunity to do it again this year as I'm just barely finally starting to understand how some things work. So so thank you, and thank you all for your support in that. It's very, very much appreciated. Okay, the floor is now open for nominations for board vice president.
This is Secretary Noreen Scott, and I would like to nominate Jeffrey Morgan to continue to serve as vice president of our board. He has brought great enthusiasm and cheer to our board meetings in a very difficult time. And I'd like to, first of all, thank him for that. And secondly, thank him for being willing to continue to serve. And I hope you are.
Do we have a second? I will second that. Is there are there other nominations for vice president of the board? Jane, can you take a roll call vote for Vice President of the Board as Jeffrey Morgan?
Yes. Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Cullen,
Yes.
Board Member Coleman,
Yes.
President Galbraith,
Yes.
Board Member Morgan.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm missing someone. Thank you. Okay, motion carries 5-0. Vice President Morgan will continue to serve this year. The floor is now open for nominations for Board Secretary.
I make a motion that Noreen maintain her position as board secretary.
Is there a second for Noreen as Secretary of the Board? I will second that. Are there other nominations for Board Secretary? Okay.
Thanks, Noreen.
Jane, can you take a roll call vote on this for us?
Yes. Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Board Member Cullen,
Yes.
Board Member Coleman,
Yes.
President Galbraith,
Yes.
Board Member Scott.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, so with that, that is our presidency of our board currently. I will serve as the board president. Our vice president will be Jeff Morgan, and our secretary will be Noreen Scott. And then, like I said at the beginning, we did fail to put some of the things for finance committee, audit committee. Catherine, there's also like the board member at large. Is that correct?
It's a large district member for the New Mexico School Board Association Board of Directors, which win current codes.
Okay. So at our next meeting, we will go through and nominate for those things. Any questions on that? Or Catherine, is there anything that you feel like you need, that might help us this week for our next meeting as we do those other things?
No, those are it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So if anyone would like to add anything else, or Jeff or Noreen, if you wanted to add, I just want to thank you guys for serving again this year. If you want to add anything, you're welcome to at this time.
Just want to say thanks to you. Thanks to your leadership. Appreciate it. Same to you, Noreen.
Well, thank you. I would also like to thank Catherine Cullen for being so gracious in sharing, and actually Wynn Coleman as well, for sharing the knowledge and experience that you had to keep our board strong. And I'm very grateful for your tenure and your service.
I echo that, Catherine and Wynn, I echo that. Thank you.
Yeah, I do as well. We've really worked well together this year, so thank you, everyone. Okay, so with that, we'll move on to the next portion of our meeting, which will be our introductory comments by Dr. Bisu Cleveland, our superintendent.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back in the new year. And congratulations in terms of the officers. I know that it'll come back for a future meeting. Just something for you to think about. And I really feel like that the 2-year cycle is a better one. I serve on the Presbyterian Foundation Board. We are 2 years for president-elect, 2 years for president, 2 years for past president. I serve on several other boards, and the complexity of things that occur today, it takes you almost a year to figure it all out. And so I hope the board might give some consideration. It seems to me it's a natural change when there's a reorganization of the board, when there's an election every 2 years. But it's just something for you to think about. I do think that the complexity of it is just a 2-year cycle makes more sense personally. But obviously that's a decision of the board. Okay. Next slide, please. I want to just share a few thoughts about the budget, and we had an update today. We had a meeting this morning, quite a lengthy one. We talked about our legislative agenda, what was going to happen in January, in just a couple of weeks. But we also had very good presentations, one by Rachel Gudgel, who is the executive director of the LESC. And we had another presentation by Charles Salee of the Legislative Finance Committee. And then we had a presentation by the Lieutenant Governor, Howie Morales. And so a lot of discussions about where we're going, budget, program. And so I just want to give you just a few very brief items that were discussed today. And, we obviously will learn more as the session unfolds. But the really, really good news is that the budget is much better than originally anticipated. And we, in fact, are not in the hole. So because there is not a deficit, there are not going to be the anticipated cuts that we all thought were coming. And so that's just such good news, unless something else happens. And, and you just always hold unless something else happens. But right now, the situation is just so much better than we had feared. And so that's good news. There is also some discussion of returning the CARES funds that were taken as credit by the state. And I will mention that a little bit more a little later in the presentation. I mentioned to you before the discussions of hold harmless in both the areas of operation and transportation funding. That seems to be gaining a lot of traction, both sides of the aisle. And so the one caveat that we keep hearing is if there was a pre-COVID decline, or if on the other side, if there's current growth in student enrollment, those factors are going to be taken into consideration before a final allocation is provided. And so even before the COVID issue, we were losing students. So that will be factored in, but it's a very small number of students, and we're not used to being a declining district. That's not been our history, and we're just really hoping this is going to be a bump. That we will see that growth continue to pick up and grow again in this wonderful community that we live in and serve in. There are going to be major increases in health insurance premiums. As you recall, this year we were supposed to have those increases, and because of COVID, the insurance companies backed off, but with the understanding they would come back this year and would make it up. And so we really have 2 years of increase rather than one. Given the very best case scenario that could happen in a couple of weeks of the session is that there would be a small salary increase or an offset so that the salaries don't decline this next year. That's really important given where our salaries are in terms of teacher salaries in particular when we compare them to Colorado, Texas, and some other states. So there may not be a salary increase per se, but at least if they can keep from having people's salaries go down in effect by health insurance premiums, that would be helpful. So there's discussion about that. Obviously, no promise about that, but that would be good news if they were able to cover those increases in health insurance. That's particularly important because of the fact that we are going to see increases in ERB. And both ERB and para have pretty significant liabilities. You hear that every year when you get the audit, you hear our share of that liability. And one of the other things they're talking about is at least putting some money in to try to catch up. And that would include a one-time donation in by the state, an increase by districts we have to pay, and an increase by individuals. So there's going to be a three-pronged effort to get that pension plan a little closer to being viable. But right now, it's not in the best of shape. Next slide, please. As I said, ERB contributions are also very likely to go up this year for everyone, individuals, districts, and we will see some money hopefully coming in from the state. Here's some good news financially for the district. There is a new cycle of CARES money that is anticipated in the immediate future. And so the discussion is it could be as much as 4 times the amount that we received this year. As you recall, we received over 1.8 million this year in the first cycle. So that could be some significant funding. And that would go to help offset the costs of COVID, everything from the very expensive air filters to helping with some additional staff that we may need if we return our secondary students and maintain the low ratios of either 5-to-1 or 10-to-1. And so we're hoping that that money will come, and we hope all of that money will go directly to districts or to charter schools rather than go through the state with some offset and then to the districts or schools. Next slide, please. Looks like next year, at least that's the feeling as of now from both LFC, LESC, that we are going to have to choose either K-5 plus or extended year for all levels for next school year. And some districts are attempting to choose both, as that's a huge amount of infusion of money. But there is a strong feeling among legislators, and I think among a lot of folks, that more time is needed to catch up on the learning that we lost this year. And so when asked whether this would be a one-year extension, the response was no, probably not. It would probably be a multiple year in attempts to try to get these students caught back up to where they were before last spring. I know you have all heard about educators being prioritized for vaccinations in hopes of getting back to in-person learning sooner. It's unfortunately not very likely that students will have access to vaccinations in the immediate future unless he or she has a really high impact medical need, and those students will be prioritized. So some of our students that have really serious health issues hopefully will get the vaccine if they want it fairly soon. But the discussions about whether the vaccines for staff will be voluntary or mandatory, we've been told there's no decision that's been made at this time about that. So there's all kinds of conversation about will it follow the model that we had in the state for so many years, tuberculosis, where you had to have the prick or the chest x-ray and you couldn't go into a public school and into a classroom until you could prove you were free of tuberculosis, or whether it would be another model in which people would have a choice to do it or not to do it, but you would still have to return to work regardless. So there's lots of discussions about what that's going to look like, and we've been told there's just no decisions have been made at this time about voluntary versus mandatory vaccinations. Next slide. As you know, we've had some really serious concerns about the vault testing, and so we are continuing to use the site at Rancho High School, the drive-through. That's working very well for us. We are waiting to hear back from the state if some of the concerns that we've raised are going to be addressed, and we hope to hear back on that fairly soon. But for now, we're going ahead with we're meeting our 10% goals, but we're doing it at the drive-through rather than through vault until we get some of those issues resolved. As I said, we're meeting the threshold of 10% that's required by PED every week. And this is really good news. And I wanted to really let you know how hard HR works to get that all done. It's taking 10% of our staff, it's getting a hold of a lot of people and following up on that, but they have done that. And also really sincere appreciation to the staff for their ongoing willingness to comply with this requirement. And so, as I said, right now, we are meeting our 10%. We are anticipating, we've been told that we should get the return reentry toolkit for secondary, for Midland High School within the next couple of weeks. Now, that doesn't mean that when we get that, we're ready to go, or even that it would be an option, but at least it's going to explain to us what it is we have to do in order to qualify for return to learning. And so we're really looking forward to getting that framework and kind of seeing what that looks like and begin some additional planning efforts so that when that time does come, we would be ready to open when the state will allow us to do that. But again, I think a lot of people are under the impression that when we get the toolkit, we automatically get to reopen. That is not the case. is just simply telling us how we will do it when that time comes. Next slide. We have been working in terms of partnerships in our district and community, which I think is one of the things we do so well in Rio Rancho. We have been in contact with Sandoval County, with Russ Medical Center, Sandoval Regional Medical Center, to offer our support in the vaccination efforts. And one of the things we've learned that in some other districts in the state, they've had a considerable number of extra vaccines, and they prioritize their teachers to try to get them vaccinated. And so we just let them know if there were extras, we would certainly like to be on the list for them to consider us. And so they have indicated that they will definitely let us know if that is available. I want to stress that this isn't the regular vaccination process that you're hearing about in the news and you're registering for and all of that. People do have to be registered to take advantage of it, but this is one of those situations where they have extra vaccine and the vaccine will only last a very short period of time. And so there's kind of an emergency call out to people who want it. If they're already registered, they can get in and take it. And so that's what we're referring to, not the regular vaccination protocols and schedules. And so we're excited about the possibility of that. There's also being some discussions about the possibility of a couple of community events in the future. And we have indicated that we would be very willing to partner in that and help with that process should that become available. So, the key is not to waste any. It's really sad when you hear in other places across the country that they've thrown them in the garbage because they didn't get them out quickly enough. So we just didn't want to be in that situation. And our hospitals are already well prepared. They've been looking at what they need to do in the case they have extras. And we hope that some of our staff would be able to take advantage of that. We have the greatest interest in initially a couple of groups. First would be those teachers who teach our children with disabilities in the small groups. Some of those youngsters are not able to wear masks, and so they are working in a situation without that extra protection. And then the second group would also be our school nurses who are dealing with our most sick children. And so we're hoping that if we had an opportunity that maybe those folks would get an opportunity to be vaccinated early on if there were extra ones. So we're hopeful. We'll keep you posted on how that's going, but we think we've got some good plans in the works. Next slide. As I said this morning, we had this long meeting. It was almost 4 hours, 3.5 hours, and we heard about some of the legislative priorities. One person I forgot to mention that spoke was Senator Schultz from Las Cruces, and it was just interesting to hear different perspectives from different individuals on what it's going to look like when the legislature opens. There seems to be a lot of support, both sides of the aisle, for expanding early childhood education in New Mexico. Still a lot of discussion of whether we want to pull that out of the permanent fund or not. But most everyone thinks something is going to happen because it is a priority of the governor and also the legislature. One of the things that in the data that was presented this morning was kind of sad for me. We only serve half of the students who could benefit from this program in Rio Rancho. And yet there are other districts that serve 100%. And so the number of students we serve is not determined by us. It is determined by the number of allocations that the state allows us to have. And so if you go into Shining Stars and you see the waiting list, I'm not exaggerating, stacked that high, people who would like to have access to that program. But we can only offer as many as the allocations we receive from the state. The other big issue for us in Rio Rancho is the lack of space. In a lot of districts that are really declining districts, have been for years, they tend to have extra space. Some districts have extra schools that are empty. And so for a lot of districts, that's not been a problem. We've never had the luxury of that. And so we don't have another school. So one of the things the board will have to be thinking about in the future is how do we get more space for early childhood for those students who want and need it. But that's hard when we have other capital needs as well, and especially after we've just built Shining Stars. The nice thing, though, is that we've got a beautiful school. We've got the plans. We could replicate that school tomorrow if we had the funding to do it. So maybe the state, it's hoped that maybe the state is going to step up and help with capital dollars for early childhood. But so far, they haven't been moved to do much of that. And I don't know exactly how we would build another school right now, but we have a lot of children who have those needs. One of the things that Charles Solis spoke to this morning, I just believe so much, but he had the data, and LFC loves data, and I'm going to get a copy of those slides and share them with the administrative staff, any board members who would like to see them. But the early childhood is one of the programs that we just have clear-cut data, clean data, clear data, undeniable data, that it makes a difference in children for a long time. And so they've followed up, through the elementary years, they followed up through the middle school years. Kids don't lose the advantages that they gain in pre-K. It stays with them forever. And so if we really want to turn things around in New Mexico, we've got to get to some of those youngsters. One of the things they showed, it was really interesting. Again, I will share it with you. We make our year's progress like other states do. And a lot of times people think we don't, but we do. The problem is that we start so far behind that we have some of our children are so far behind to begin with, we can't do 1 year. We need to do 2 or 3 years in order for them to catch up with their peers in other places and in our state as well. So the need for early childhood is a really pressing need. And the data is pretty clear. It does make a difference. So I expect, based on the comments we heard this morning, something will come about in terms of early childhood. I don't know how much money they will put in there, whether they will go to capital as well as operational, but it is an important area, and I think we have a lot of interest in that. The other comment, just very briefly, is they seem to be getting really serious about trying to deal with Yazzie Martinez and get the state into compliance with it. The state did try to get it, just get themselves dismissed from the lawsuit, and the judge did not agree to that. And so now they're moving very quickly to try to get the state into compliance so they can get out from under that court order. As you well know, the students that are most impacted, though all students are impacted, are Native American children, students with disabilities, which of course is a huge area for us. Native American is a pretty significant area for us. We have 2,000 students who claim heritage, Native heritage, English learners, and students from low-income families. One of the interesting things is kind of a carrot, but they were talking about some of the new proposed funding may come linked to in-person learning only. And so that's probably a push to get some going back in the spring or in the fall. And I just thought that was interesting, that you wouldn't get the funding if you were not offering some in-person learning. That doesn't mean full-time, it means at least hybrid. Next slide, please. As we listen to all of this and some of the new programs and some of the new things they want to do, and they're all great. I mean, we all think they have tremendous potential. It's just kind of the feeling in the back of my mind is that before we jump out on all these new programs, we need to fund what we have to do now. We have to open the door. And so whether that's insurance, whether that is utilities, whether that is salaries, or regardless, we've got to pay for what we have first and build on that. For Rio Rancho, probably the biggest issue, it's been there for years now, is funding transportation. we just can't keep absorbing $1 million a year. The state doesn't pay for. And so trying to get all the required things paid for first, and then go to the new initiatives. And many of those new initiatives, we'd be very excited to see. We like the foundation there first. Concerns that we really go back and look at liability in terms of COVID, and maybe bring that up to date in terms of NIMSIA and some other areas to make sure we've got good coverage in that area, because I don't think anyone thinks that it's going away tomorrow. It will be with us for a while, and making sure that we have adequate coverage. And I mentioned that already, resolving the issues related to vault. We are hoping soon to know, because we're getting so many questions about what the what the state will decide to do in terms of guidance on staff vaccinations. And we need to know that. Our staff needs to know that. We hope it'll be very clear guidance, whatever it is they decide, so that we can share that with people soon. One of the things that I think is just that we've got to think about, because we've been virtual, we've been able to move some things around, and we come back in the spring with some in-person learning. We are going to struggle at the secondary level because we are not fully staffed at all. So we're going to have to go out and begin to really try to recruit. We've had a lot of people leave this year over COVID. We continue to have folks that resign over it, whether it's their own personal health they're worried about, whether it's a family member whose health they're worried about. But we have lost some of our staff, and we have significant number of vacancies. So as we look to this year, and certainly to next year, which we hope will go back to regular schedule in the fall, we've got a lot of work to do in terms of recruitment and retention. And we have a lot of vacancies, and we're really concerned about that at the secondary level in particular. We have two important presentations this evening for the board. There will be a presentation by Carl Leppelman, David Latham, and Benton Spradlin. They will share with you how they're looking to the future, what would be the new CTE programs that they would like to see. They will discuss, what they're proposing and what are the things that have to be in place that are going to make that enhancement a reality over the next 2 years. As you know, we're continuing to work with CNM, with planning teams on a joint building, a common use facility. They have done this already in the Albuquerque Public Schools and are planning to do that with us. That's looking like a reality maybe over the next couple of years. And so we need to be thinking now about what would we put in that building? What would be the programs that we'd like to see? And so they've got some recommendations for you to hear tonight. Obviously, we've got to continue the discussions. Formal decisions will be made later. The board will obviously have to approve that effort. And but we wanted you to kind of know what we were thinking about, and to give them a chance to share where they're looking in terms of the next 2 years. And as I said, we're continuing to work with them on having that common use facility. And then the second, Melanie Archibald, our Executive Director of Facilities, will be presenting the district's 5-year master plan. And I've been told by Mike Baker there are really very few modifications from the previous plan or the previous presentation, but they wanted to bring that to you as well this evening. So those are the two major presentations that we have. Are there any questions or comments?
Thank you, Dr. Cleveland. Anyone in the board have a question they'd like to ask Dr. Cleveland?
No questions.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you, Dr. Cleveland. We appreciate those comments. It's always helpful to hear about those things. On Shining Stars, I remember, so 3 of my kids of my 4 went to Shining Stars, and my middle one, he couldn't get in because it was just, he was on the waiting list. And so we used to say we were homeschooling him for his pre-K, which is kind of funny. He still remembers that. Oh, I remember I homeschooled for pre-K. So anyway, but it is a great school and a great asset to our public schools, and we appreciate that school. So thank you again, Dr. Cleveland. Okay, so we'll move to item H to approve the prioritized agenda and proposed time allocations. Any discussion or changes that need to for the prioritized agenda? I make
What? You were going to go?
I'll make a motion to approve that prioritized agenda. I just heard you unmuted, so I was going to let you say.
I'll second.
Thank you, Noreen Scott. Jane, can you take a roll call vote for us?
Yes, I will. Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Cullen,
Yes.
Board Member Coleman,
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion carries 5-0. We're now moving on to public comment. For public comment, we received 5 public comments. For those who would like to address the board through public comment, please go to our district website. You will find a form where you can submit your public comment. We do read all of those, and district office also reads those public comments, and we appreciate you sending them. For those 5 public comments, we received one from Jesus Apodaca asking us to not reopen schools at this time. We received another from Cindy Apodaca about the risk to teachers and staff without students being tested. Daniel Zuniga, he sent in a recommendation that all staff, not just the 5 to 10%, be tested biweekly or monthly. Leah Lichtenfeld, she asked for a review of the current approved calendar with changing. Our current calendar ends June 7th. She asked that we take a look at that and see if we could change that so that it would end on June 4th. And our last public comment was from Cheryl Daniels, who was asking that we stay the course for opening on the 19th, and that we allow our special education students to go back in, and that we do not make it a condition of employment, which do not make it a condition of employment for our teachers to be vaccinated. And that is our public comments for this evening. And like I said before, those in the public who are listening at this time, we appreciate those comments. So please feel free to get onto our district website and submit those public comments. With that, we will move on to commendations. And as was announced before, we have Carrie Plant, the Vice President, AMREP Southwest, here with us. And Michael Baker, our Chief Operations Officer, will present our commendation for the evening. You with us, Mike?
Yes, yep, I am.
There we are.
Sorry about that. So, yeah, I just want to say, on behalf of Rio Rancho Public Schools, we certainly want to extend our gratitude and our appreciation to Carrie and to AMREP Southwest. And so they've donated about a third to a half of our cost for connectivity, where students that families don't have the proper funding to get connected into our virtual classroom, internet connections or hotspots. AMREP has generously made a donation, and the donation will greatly benefit not just the families, but also RRPS. And so the donation is in the amount of $38,500. The donation actually will go to the Education Foundation, and then from the foundation, it will go to RRPS. And so certainly under these circumstances, meaning COVID, our students have to have that connection to their teachers, and they do that via internet. And so, Carrie, I just want to take this time and express my appreciation to you and to AMREP and the folks that made the donation possible. Thank you.
Sure thing, you guys. It's been, for me being at AMREP for so long now, it's kind of nice to see things starting to turn back around to where we can be more involved in the community and doing these types of things like we used to. So hopefully this is just the start of more to come. But, more important, it's when I started making phone calls to people to ask for them to donate to our, other builders and people that work in our industry. Like that evening, the evening when I decided that we should try to do this, I got 9 yeses and 1 I don't think so. So it was really cool to see everybody sort of, jump on board quick, and understanding the need is so great. So that makes the giving all that much better. So I on behalf of all the builders, and this is something that I share through Home Builders Association. I sit on that board, and then SEA. I haven't solicited through SEA, but I'm definitely going to continue hitting up builders and some of our contractors. So you might see stuff floating in a little later. So that's the hope. So we start a little trend here.
Yes.
But Mike, thanks for bringing our attention to the program and when we were asking, how we could donate and how we can help. So thank you guys, and for continuing on doing a stellar job and trying to serve our students. Hard time.
Thank you, Carrie.
It is a hard time. Before you go, Carrie, I just want to let the board give an opportunity if they have anything else to say. Noreen Scott, I can see is ready to go.
Yeah, first off, I would like to thank you, Carrie, personally for your efforts. It's really wonderful when leaders in the community step up to make a difference in our schools, and I think we all benefit long term. But secondly, I would like to recognize AMREP Southwest for their continued support in our community over our entire existence, but they have always supported education and economic development, and I'm very grateful for that. So thank you.
You're welcome. And our district did graduate all 3 of my kids, so who have gone on through college and career. So
oh, that's awesome. Anyone else on the board? Jeffrey Morgan, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, just want to say thanks to both Carrie and Mike for their support, their initiative with this program. It makes a big difference, and it has made a big difference. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Sure thing.
And
you guys, thanks a bunch.
Yeah. Anyone else? Wynn Coleman, go ahead.
Sure. No, Carrie, thank you so much. I think that we've seen, especially during this time, just how important our community is in coming together to support our students and our families. So thank you.
Right.
And then Catherine Cullen, go ahead.
So pretty much everybody said it. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I know this really will, thank you for this.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you, Carrie.
Thanks,
thank you for coming on. We appreciate it.
I'll sign off your meeting. Thanks. You guys have a good night.
You too. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. So grateful for our community. I grew up here, and I'm grateful for Rio Rancho and all those who help us. So, okay, moving on to reports. And we will have, an update. We're going to start with an update on our CTE program, looking to the future. I'm actually really excited to hear about this report. Carl Leppelman, our Chief Academic Officer, will be on with us. David Latham and Benton Spradlin will also be here from our CTE team.
Yes, thank you, Madam President Galbraith, members of the board, and Dr. Cleveland. This road towards a strong CTE program has started several years ago with the Career Technical Education Advisory Committee, and we've made a lot of headway, and we're really excited to talk a little bit about where we think we can go, what the future looks like, and it looks bright for our students. So if we'd move to the first slide, Jane, or the second slide, thank you. You've seen these goals before, and they really came out of that advisory committee, and we have expanded offerings. We'll talk a little bit about that tonight. We gave you some data way back before we went into the pandemic. We'd like to come back and update that data for you, but you'll see that our students are getting more and more opportunity, and that is absolutely critical for our students to have access to these high-paying jobs. The academic, technical, and soft skills needed, we see that that's a real need, and Dave is going to talk a little bit about that. That connection between what happens at school and what happens when you get out of school, all of us remember that at some point in our lives, that sometimes that bridge wasn't there. And so we're really working very hard to actually bridge that gap. And last, as far as our goals, that awareness of career opportunities. A lot of our students they really don't even know what's out there. There are about 5 to 6 million jobs currently in manufacturing that are needs out there that we cannot fulfill. And as we go forward as a state, we're going to need more and more students with these skill sets. So I'm really excited about the opportunities for our students. And I want to, before we move further, I'd like to really thank David Latham and Benton Spradlin. I think one of the best things we did was say, David, yes, you would be a great director of career technical education. And he was actually doing both at one point in time, both the SLC, the reframe. He was doing credit recovery. He was also covering all of the career technical, and he was getting tired, I think, but now he's very energized right now. The other thing we did, I thought was very, very strategic, was asking Carl Perkins that could we cover part of Mr. Benton Spradlin's salary 3 years ago, so we could start developing these sequenced courses. And you'll see in our program of studies later that we've really developed those sequenced courses. So I'd like to turn it over to Director David Latham and our CT program coordinator, Benton Spradlin, and thank them, along with all the support the board's given us. Member Cullen, thank you for the support during this time as we started looking at this years ago. And so I'll turn it over to David. Thank you.
Madam President, Dr. Cleveland Board, Ben and I appreciate you allowing us to share some information with you. Jane, if we can get the next slide. As we start out, I'm going to let Benton talk about what we currently have and where we've been. And I know, Catherine, that you saw this at the beginning when we first started, and it has really come a long ways. One of the things I'd like to say is that we've offered a lot of classes all along, but we have never coordinated it, and we haven't put them into the correct formats with the state, et cetera. Ben Spradlin has spent a lot of time with Paul Lockhart on doing this, and we've had lots of meetings with PED. I think we meet with them weekly right now, and we're also developing another pathway that's not on here for athletic training. That's not a pathway currently, and we think it should be. And so the state's asked us to go ahead and to start developing that and getting some information for them. Hopefully we'll have an athletic training pathway that will be a career pathway as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Benton right now and let him talk about what we have currently, and to let you all see some information there.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Carl, and Dr. Cleveland, Madam President, members of the board. We just appreciate the time and the opportunity to share with you. We're really proud of the work that we've done, and we're really excited for the future. So, so this slide here, and once again, I'm Benton Spradlin. I'm the CT program coordinator for the district. So this slide here kind of breaks down the 18 CTE programs that we have at our high schools here in Rio Rancho. And this list includes the dual credit programs that David set up about 3 years ago with CNM. So if you can move on to the next slide. Okay, so this slide and the next slide, this is the CT career pathways at Cleveland, and the next one shows the one at Rio Rancho High School. So this is what Dave was talking about. We have worked really hard in the last couple of years working with the PED to organize all of our CTE programs into pathways where each one of them have intro classes, concentrator classes, and capstone classes. And this is, we had multiple conversations, meetings with people at the PED to make sure we have these classes connected to the correct STARS numbers per the PED. So this is fantastic for us, and it's been really important for a couple different reasons. from an organizational standpoint, we're organized about it. We can communicate it out clearly to all the stakeholders, students, families, district folks, everybody, teachers, and each one of these pathways makes sense. And also, another really important part of this, and why this is so important, is that we can start getting credit from the PED for and count students as concentrators and completers, which is looked on positively as we're graded out for Perkins. It also positively impacts school grades. So we're really happy with getting these pathways organized. And I know I'm not expecting to read all those words. I know they're pretty small, but you can see all the different pathways that we have at both of the schools. You can move on to the next slide if you would. So you've seen kind of a breakdown of the programs that we do have for our high school students, but in this analysis and in analyzing all these programs and looking at all the career clusters, seeing what we have and what we don't have, it became abundantly clear, and we kind of knew it intuitively, but it became abundantly clear in looking at high value careers, high demand, high pay. What we did not offer were programs in the skilled trades. Specifically, what we have listed here: electrical, plumbing and pipe fitting, HVAC, and carpentry and construction. So that is, our analysis and our data. We looked at lots of data and continue to look at lots of data all the time, probably, weekly. And if you wouldn't mind moving on to the next slide. So this is kind of a breakdown of some national and some state data that we just pulled here in the last few weeks. The left side shows you national data, right side shows you state data, and this is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics Occupational Outlook Handbook, and then the left side, the national data is, and then from the same website, Bureau of Labor Statistics, if you drill down to the local data, we have data on the right side that is state and local data. And you can see the occupations there: electricians, plumbers, pipe fitters, HVAC specialists, welders, and diesel engine mechanics. So, and we, David and I we were concerned that, we're working with CNM and really are hoping to have move forward with them. And so we checked in with them and just say, hey, are you guys looking at the same thing? Are you seeing the same data and the same trends? And they were, and everybody's kind of getting the same data. So that's and you can see excellent, you can see the pay there, and you can see the job growth as well. So if you wouldn't move on to the next slide, and then I'll turn it back over to Dave and let him talk about this part.
So as we were looking at the data, we have a dual credit welding program going right now. It's not sufficient in the sense of size, but it's there. It's an offering. We have an automotive program that we started a year ago, which was really going strong until we had the issue in March come up where we can't get hands-on. One of the biggest problems that you have with all CTE classes, a lot of CTE classes, these students take these classes because they like hands-on. It doesn't matter if it's robotics, doesn't matter if it's Python programming or what it is. So when you take them out of that environment and they can't get that, it becomes a lot harder. So, we still have an automotive program. It's still working well as we could have it work. But when we can get kids back in and get hands-on, it's going to be a lot better. The problem we have with our automotive program is we're going to outgrow that facility very, very quickly. We'll outgrow that facility probably in another year. And so we really need to look at another facility as well. So with that being said, Ben and I looked at, okay, what do we have? What do other people have? What do other schools offer? What do other programs offer? And we came up with this idea for an emerging application in applied technologies. Now, CNM has a certificate of achievement in something very similar to this. And I don't think it'd be really hard for them to create this. But we would start students out as in the sophomore year, give them an applied survey of applied technologies, let them go through all of them in a one semester, try to look at an OSHA certificate. I think that's really important that we get that OSHA piece. They would have some type of blueprint reading, CAD class or design class. And then we have semesters, a double block semester where they get an intro to carpentry, construction, HVAC, plumbing, and electrical. We would end it with an internship at local businesses. Now, Ben and I have talked to a huge amount of businesses. Paul Lockhart and Susan Jaramillo have been involved in that as well. We've visited with, and Ben, you're going to have to help me, but James Corporation, Bricon, AGC, Association of General Contractors. Who am I missing?
Rio Rancho Fire Department, Intel, HP,
TLC.
Thank you. TLC Plumbing.
Chalmers Ford.
Chalmers Ford, yes.
We've just hit lots and lots of both Carpenters Reunion and Electrical Union. We've been talked to a lot of different people and got a lot of different ideas from those. Jane, if I could have the next slide. So in building these programs, what we had to do is we had about 30 to 35 to 40 different questions that we had to ask before we could even come up with this. And you know, what programs we want to include, what do we want to do with auto and welding? You know, can it lead to high demand jobs? Ben's already been through that. Can we offer all these programs? So, you know, we looked at offering each individual program, and could we staff each individual program? Could we offer that much? We had to start looking at who's going to teach these classes, and are they CNM employees, Rio Rancho Public School employees? What's going to happen? You know, where are they going to be taught? Facility, location. We talked to high school principals. What is this going to look like? Are it going to be double blocked, single blocked, et cetera? Then we started to say, okay, what is sustainable? What can we sustain? How many students can we get in there? How many can we keep in there? How about the funding sources? Can we sustain the programs based on funding source? You know, what are the annual recurring costs? You know, if this is going to be a facility offsite, how are we going to get students to that facility? How are we going to pay for getting students to that facility? So we went through a lot of this curriculum-wise. You know, what kind of certificate do we want? Where's the partnerships? What partnerships can we make with local businesses, et cetera? Okay, Jane, if you'll hit the next slide. So we went through a lot of these different questions. We've talked to a lot of different people. What we came up with is we have to have this facility. If we're going to grow a program, we got to have a facility that can house this program. What we want housed in this program is we want a facility that can deal with electrical, can deal with plumbing, can deal with HVAC, can deal with carpenter construction. We want the welding program to be moved into it. We want the automotive program to be moved into it, that we can have enough space for both of those programs to expand. So we really need this facility, and how we're going to handle this facility, and what are we going to do with this facility? Can we partner with CNM with this facility? And I think that's what Dr. Cleveland alluded to earlier when she was talking. And so this is kind of the direction we wanted to go. We've met with Sandoval County Alliance. We've met with just a ton of different people in visiting with this. One of the things that we've come across multiple times are those soft skills that Carl talked about. You know, this is the same thing everybody's talking about. You know, we need people that are going to show up to work. We need people to show up on time. We need people that would, going back to my coaching days, say, are they coachable? Are they teachable? Okay, can you teach them? Okay, and then can they work with other people? We want people, especially when you get into the construction part, it doesn't matter what of the top 4 or 5 you're dealing with, do they have the aptitude to do hands-on? Okay, so is that kind of their thing? Can they pick it up quickly? And so those are a lot of the different things that we've been hearing over and over again from businesses. We think that this program that we've come up with would be a great program. I don't know if we have another slide or not. Is there another slide on this thing? That partnerships, those internships, we think are super important, that a student finishes up with that. Student finishes up and decides they want to go into whatever area, one of the 4 or 5 different areas, they can do that. And businesses, a lot of businesses will pay for them to do that. I know the unions will pay for them to do that. C&M is available. There's a lot of avenues for people to further their skills in those skilled trades. Benton, I don't know if I've missed anything. You want to jump in?
I was just gonna say, if Jane, if you wouldn't mind going back to slide 8 just real quick. That, what we like about, what we've come up with is that it gives kids kind of a smattering, if you will, or a little bit of a foundation in each of these areas. They get their safety training, blueprint, reading and design, and then they get some carpentry and construction, HVAC, plumbing and pipe fitting. And then, as they're going through this, they're going to find that they have a greater interest in one area or the other. And then we can we've made some good relationships in the community with a lot of businesses, and we can kind of customize their internship with what they're more seriously interested in. And we're just and I don't know if it's going to look exactly like this, but that's kind of what our thinking is. And it'd be kind of difficult to offer all those programs individually, but if we can kind of package them into one program, I think that'd be a good place to start.
And I know we're going to have 1,000 questions. I realize that. So, Madam President, we're open for questions.
Okay. Well, Noreen Scott raised her hand, I see. So I'm going to go ahead, Noreen Scott.
My question is, what size facility do you think you're going to need?
That's a great question. We've batted that around, I don't know how many times. In fact, it got asked again today in a meeting that we had today. What is our size facility? That's one of the things that we're working with C&M. And that's something that I don't have an answer for right now, but we are working and talking with C&M on those talks currently.
What will drive the size? What are you discussing with C&M to drive the size, other than what programs they might offer versus what you might offer?
We need a large enough facility that's going to house 6 programs that I talked about, and we need to talk to those individuals that teach those programs, and we need to look at other facilities and see the size of those facilities to see what we're going to need to teach it. We need to go back and talk to Jim Gore, who's the automotive teacher, and say, Jim, what do you need? And he's given us an idea of what he needs in the automotive side. But I think the biggest thing is to look and see what other people are doing, see how big those facilities are in other places that are doing this, and even look at some of C&M's. I know Benton and Paul Lockhart and myself went to Moriarty, who has a really nice facility, and we looked at their facility and their size. Square footage right now, I wouldn't even want to venture to say what our full-size building is, but I think at some point in the near future, we can come back and tell you that.
What size is the Moriarty facility?
Well, their facility is a building that they already had that they remodeled. Okay, so their automotive site, it was an elementary school, so they used the whole school, and they
Oh,
put in a lot of
interesting.
things that they didn't need. All right. So, you know, they have a commons area, they have different things that you don't necessarily have to have. They just happen to have the room. When we talked to Teresa Salazar, the superintendent, he said, we had the room to do this, but you really didn't need to do it. And I don't know the size of that one. I know the size, their automotive, they had 3 bays. It was large enough, you know, where you could have 3 different lifts in there, plus tool rooms, plus et cetera. So
I was just going to jump in there. I just kind of, I mean, Dave and I have both done sketches. We've done sketches on dry erase board. I'm looking at several here just on draft paper that we've, I mean, we've looked at everything from, you know, 20,000 to 50,000 square feet, but, you know, I don't know. We couldn't get specific enough and get nailed down on an exact square footage. We're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I
Go
also
ahead.
jump in there? We have a really good working team that with CNM that meets. Melanie Archbeck sits on that with Mike Baker, and tonight we're really, it's a great question. We're in that stage right now. And what's really good is we're on track. We can our bonding matches with their bonding, but we're in that program mode right now, looking at design and to what extent would each of these programs need space. Some of the conversation we have is flexibility of career pathways as things change in the workplace. So I think it's going to be a unique setting, and I think looking at other states and looking at other facilities is a really good idea. But this is unique. It's not been done in New Mexico in terms of this type of facility with a community college. So it does open up a lot of opportunities. And so that tonight, that's one of the reasons we're here tonight, is really say, are we moving in the right direction? So we can go back. We have actually a meeting next week, start talking a little more about that, Secretary Scott, in terms of space, as we start to look at each of these career pathways. So we're in that phase right now. We have about 6 months to get that done. So we're actually on track.
Well, I'm very excited about this program and have been since I joined the board and prior. One of the things that I really liked hearing was early on you talked about how you looked at all of the programs globally and realized that we were already doing some things through DECA and other areas, and you're looking at it more globally. And I think that's really smart. So thank you very much. And I have no more questions.
We'll go over to Catherine Cullen, who, as you guys said, she's been a great supporter of this program. So go ahead, Catherine.
Hi, yeah, thank you. And so kind of the history, just on my going back about 8 years now, is my first meeting with Carl Leppelman and Dr. Cleveland and Richard Bruce was getting CTE. Of course, I called it vocational programs back into schools. And that was kind of my vision, was a building where all the students can go from the different high schools to be able to do the tech programs. And some of you guys are kind of newer within the year, but where I came from, we had a very good CTE programs. And I remember when I was in high school, they built a house from the ground up with one of their builders in the local area. So they partnered with them, and the students actually built the house, and then it was sold. So it was, so definitely when I've seen the construction aspect, I think that's such an important part that we've been missing. And, automotive, over the years. And I'm telling you that the state legislators are so tired of hearing from me, because from that day one, I was like, we need money, we need money. Now we're progressively seeing that they're starting to, to see that the need for CTE in this state, because we are so far as a state, I believe that we're really far behind on the CTE programs compared to some of the other states. So I'm really excited to hear this. And I did hear that, you do have a work group with CNM and Rio Rancho Public Schools. Who's all on that work group, Carl?
Superintendent Cleveland, Samantha, I'm going to not get her name right. Sorry. Single, is it? Jennifer McDonald, David, of course, Mike Baker, Melanie, their design team, they're actually their facilities person. we can get that to you. It's a fairly large group.
Okay.
I know I've left some people off, David, I'm sure. What's a bit, she works with us
Amy
all.
Ballard.
Amy Ballard, right. So programmatically looking at curriculum, instruction, design. So we actually have a really strong work group, and Samantha keeps us like really like here. So what's the time? So that backwards planning for 2 years out, what do we need to get done?
Right. Okay. And I know I had another question, but I just went out went out there. So I'll let everybody else talk, and if it comes back to me, I'll let you know, Amanda.
Sounds good. All right, let's go to Jeffrey Morgan.
I don't have any questions, guys, but just thanks for all your work. And I do like the programs that you're adding. I think that makes a lot of sense to keep us competitive. That makes a lot of sense. So thank you so much for those considerations.
Thank you, Jeff. And Wynn Coleman.
Thank you. What I'd like to just hear is, I know that I saw you reference Cleveland and Rio Rancho high schools, but how are you incorporating independence in these programs and the students there?
I'd ask David to answer because we already have an auto, so they absolutely will incorporate those students and be part of this, but as well as the Cyber Academy. Go ahead, David. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and be able to schedule those individuals in just like Cleveland or Rio Rancho High School. We already have cyber and independent students able to take the automotive program. So we're already working through that. We would do the same thing with these programs and bring those students in as well. So that's not going to be an issue for us. It's just the scheduling issue is, in fact, since they're on a block schedule, it'd be probably easier for them to schedule it than it would be for the other two large high schools.
It's good to know. So thank you.
Catherine, did you remember?
Yes, I did. So I had it written on a different piece of paper. There was one when we were kind of first couple of years of talking about this. There was a heating and air conditioning systems and services that I had talked to at one of the school board meetings that they would like to get involved in. I know they've gotten involved with different CTE programs across the United States. And I think I might have given it to you, Carl, not sure. Or if it was Gary Tripp at the time that we had.
Was it, say it again, was it a HVAC?
It was an HVAC, air conditioning systems and services. So it's a particular company. I don't know if we want to say that now.
Okay, yeah. Well, I know that I know Mike Chambers has talked to us from one of those companies, a large company here locally. But our companies are important. It's interesting that we talked about partnerships with AMREP. It's the same thing here. This will work because the internships and the partnerships we have with C&M, and so we have had TLC. There are other.
Yeah, this is actually the makers of the.
The actual Ream, not Ream, but Train was a Train organization, right? Working out to the large, yeah, and we can reach out to those that program too, and I think Dr. Cleveland's talked about that with us, with David. Train does have a program, Train AC heating systems. So yeah.
I didn't want to say their name.
Okay, let me we can mention several others, aren't there? Carrier, Ream has one. Yeah.
And I just want to say thank you so much, David, Latham, for when you took this over. And I know that you had so much on your plate when you started this, and it has really expanded and grown over the years. So I really do appreciate all your work. And then Ben coming in, and Paul as well. I at the CTE meeting, I didn't get to say as much as I wanted to about how much I appreciate all the work that you guys have done on this. And it certainly shows in the programs that we're getting. And I'm glad to see the students that are able to participate.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we're going to go over to Wynn Coleman. She has something.
Something came to mind, and I don't know if anybody would know the numbers at this point, but I know Dr. Cleveland earlier referenced kind of being short on staff. How many EAs really does that? And after I have that answer, then I'll kind of tell you where I'm going with this. But how many EAs are we short in the district at this point?
I know, Dr. Cleveland, would you be able to answer that one, or Carl?
I don't know, Mike Chavez, if you were on, do you know how many EAs that we are short? I know that we are short a good number.
Yeah, and Mr. Reeder reached out to me today, and he put a memo together for me looking at small group EA. But I don't. Mike Chavez would have that information from Mike Baker.
Madam President, Dr. Cleveland, I can get that number for you just here in a few minutes.
And so what I'm just wondering if Ed Rising is a part of this, and if we're short with our EAs, I mean, is there anything that can be done to kind of maybe solve one problem, look at kind of incorporating this as a way for them to kind of get that like internship?
I can answer that question. Right now, we do have internships with Ed Rising. And that was supposed to go in this year. We just are not able to do them this year. But we do have internships with Ed Rising. And I don't know if you know more about them than that.
You know, it is a part of that pathway. The capstone course is their internship. Now, I don't, you know, if there may be legal issues that might have to be worked through, or you know, to get those students to serve in the EA capacity, or you know, cover those roles or whatever. But it's a great way to kind of think about utilizing one of our programs to solve one of our problems.
Okay, and thank you. I mean, I just am coming from in the district where we were when we lived in Kansas City. It wasn't the same thing, but they had high school students working with the elementary as kind of mentors. They were in the classroom and kind of helping out. And so just as you were talking about that, and knowing that we are addressing a staff shortage, and just thought that there might be some ways. I just want to, you know, ask that we maybe take a look at what could be done, and address maybe some of the obstacles, or how we could get around that, or if it would support that. I think that might be something to consider.
I see Dr. Cleveland has something. Oh, Mike, do you have the numbers? Did you want to give the number before?
Yeah, so we all educational assistants from general ed to special ed, we're down in the neighborhood of about 40.
Go ahead, Dr. Cleveland.
Well, just a couple of comments. Yeah, certainly with Ed Rising, we are trying to get students who are interested, and that is a good group. We've got a good sponsor, and really pushing, looking at education as a future field for them. There is a bill, you just couldn't cover everything in superintendent's comments, but there is a bill that's coming up this time in the legislature that will pay for educational assistants to become teachers, will pay their tuition. And they have to give some back. I forget how many years they have to give back. I think you have to give back every year for every year you had tuition. But it would give those folks an opportunity to become regular certified teachers. And we have some wonderful EAs. Some of the best teachers we have in this district were EAs in this district at one time. And so the biggest problem is the cost of getting through working, and especially in EA salaries, and being able to afford the tuition. So I'm really hoping that bill passes. I really hope that we'll be able to offer that to any of our educational assistants who might want to become teachers. So the other I want to mention is, of course, the teacher intern program. And it's been a real success this year. And our interns have moved around and helped when we had needs at the elementary level, even if they were secondary. They moved to the elementary level and helped out there. Some of them found that they really enjoyed that, may change their thinking about where they want to teach long term. But we really want to see that program expanded as well in terms of recruitment. I'd like to go back and just address a couple of things. When David and Benton presented this to me last week, I thought, the whole board needs to hear this. There's really good information. And so thank you for presenting it twice. But I do think it was really important information for the board to hear. Just a couple of thoughts. One is, yes, this has been a very thoughtful approach, and they've gone at it from the pathways rather than the single classes, which makes it much more useful to students. And certainly, it's mentioned several times, high value. We were looking for things where people could make a good living, could support their family, could have a good career. And I think they've been very careful and thoughtful about what those areas are that would provide that for our students. And we still have one area we need to work on a lot. And they are aware that we've had those conversations with Jerry Shallow and Fred Shepard and NAOP, and is to get that pipeline in place so that when these students finish, there's a job for them. And what happens so often is that we get these students well prepared, and then somebody grabs them from out of state because our pipeline is not as solid as it needs to be. So that's the other big push. And internships are critical to being able to have that pipeline. So, and the unions are also just absolutely essential in finding jobs for these young people. But our hope is to hire local and to provide open opportunities for our students to not have to leave New Mexico, not have to go to Texas, not have to go to Colorado. And so that's another important part. And in mentioning Jerry and John and Fred, they have all been, NAOP, the Chamber, SEA, have all been important part of this and have to be for this to be able to work. And so really want to thank them too for the time and effort, and had really good feedback not too long ago in a partners meeting from Jerry and from Fred about the work that has been done, the work that David and Benton have done. And they're pleased, I think, from the business community side to see the work that has been done. But the real area I think we all agreed in that meeting that's got to be improved is the pipeline and the connection from school to work. And it's just got to be better refined than what we've had. Just a couple of caveats here. This building that we're building with CNM may not be able to house everything we want. It's not going to be, it's not necessarily going to take care of everything. So I don't want to build an expectation that it's going to do everything. One of the things that is different about the building, and I haven't seen enough yet to be convinced, but probably David and Benton have, is a new thinking from CNM that labs might function for more than one area. So it might not always be a welding lab. It might be a welding lab this semester and another kind of lab the next semester. I don't know how that's going to work, and they haven't really convinced me of that yet. But there's thinking of looking at lab space differently than they have done that in the past. But some just don't work that way. I mean, you talk about 3 bays. Well, you're not going to pick those bays up and move them in the second semester. So it'll be interesting to see. There's still a lot of work to be done. A couple of you commented on, and I think it's just so important we continue to have that conversation with our legislators, that we're never going to have the strong programs in New Mexico unless we get a dedicated revenue stream for CTE beyond Carl Perkins. It isn't enough. And so if we really want fine programs, we've got to find a way to fund them the way Texas does, the way Colorado does, the way Arizona does. And then we'll have those kind of quality programs. Right now, we don't really have a really solid revenue stream to pay for them. And that has to be put in. And I know every year we talk about it at the legislature, and every year it doesn't quite happen. But it is something that needs to, we've got to identify a regular source where income comes in every year. It can't be competitive. It can't be every year you go out for a grant. There has to be a way to fund it on a regular basis. And continuing to work with some of our industries that was mentioned earlier, train does a lot of the training for all of the HVAC folks, and they've expressed a real interest in working with us, as have others. I had a luncheon with John Gallegos and the head of training for this company, and they're excited too and think they can bring resources to the table that will help us be able to utilize their equipment. One of the challenges that we get into in so many of these, though, is you have to be 18 in many cases to work in those environments. And so that's, I don't know, I know you all have worked around some of that, but I just want to end my comments by also saying what a great job has been done up to this point. We are so much further along. And so the support Carl for the committee and Catherine served on that committee, the day-to-day work that David and Benton have put into this have really paid off. And it's exciting to see where we might be going. But my, kind of thinking about, Catherine, what you were saying, a site where everyone goes to do those things is kind of different than a joint building that we would have on the CNM campus. And so it probably will end up being both, kind of a combination of the two, or we will think very differently and put all of those resources at some point on that campus in some sort of a joint arrangement. I don't think we know all of that yet. But when APS, they built a building for APS, we were hoping to kind of see how that went, but they didn't choose to do the trades. They didn't choose to do CT8 in that joint facility. So we're still kind of the new ones, the ones looking to do it differently. And CNM is really excited, I think, about it being in CTE areas rather than some of the others, because that was their original mission. That was their original task. And so I think they're excited in seeing, how we might work together. And my last comment is just to thank two folks, Tracy Hartzler, who's the new president, who kept the vision alive. We were kind of worried when we got a new president, maybe they wouldn't keep the vision alive, and she has. And Sam, who's been working on it for a long time, she's been a really strong supporter. And then one other, just very quickly, the chairman of their board this year is Tom Swistak, who of course represents Rio Rancho, and he too has kept that conversation going from the governing board level. So so many people have come together to get it to this point. We've got a long way to go, but just thanks to everybody for all the hard work that has been done up to this point.
Thank you, Dr. Cleveland. Wen, did you have a question?
Yes, and I first of all want to say thank you, and thank you for the commitment to this. But I am still, I don't know if it was really answered. My question being, is there any thought to, and I know that this would need to be addressed, maybe even as far as liability, but if we're doing internships, something with our current students with Dead Rising and our EAs, and if that's something that we could take a look at. And again, I know that there are going to be things that I'm not thinking of, but if we're down that many and we have students that are really interested in this, if there's an opportunity to somehow maybe fill gaps and really kind of get those students kind of that firsthand experience.
Well, when I was younger, I'm thinking a paid internship's usually better than a non-paid when when you think about it. But I think we'd have to look into that, Benton, and look at the Ed Rising program and the amount of time that student has as a high school student within that internship based on the need that we have within the school that we're covering. So we'll get back with you on that. I know that might be some of the challenge, and the other challenge would be the paid piece of it. So we just have to look at that. Member Coleman, I think it's a legitimate, worthwhile thing to look at.
Thank you. Yeah,
yes,
I know
I was just gonna
Go ahead, Ben. Did you have something you want to say?
echo. I'm sorry. I was just going to echo what Carl said. It's it could work out. It could take some burden off and really help the teachers. I know those students, even in their second year class and their third year class, before they get to their internship, they go and spend time in classrooms I know this is a little different deal. An EA is, it's a fuller half-time position. So we can talk about it and see if there's something, see if there's any way to make it work. But I think it's definitely a worthwhile idea to look into.
Can I add just one more thing to that? Our EAs are pushed beyond belief every day. I mean, we use them to run our schools. And I know that when we were looking at the, going back to hybrid learning, Janice Chenault shared, how vital they were to just the day-to-day operation of the schools. But I do think that if we can get their tuition paid, and one of the things, not only UNM, but CNM can offer programs in this area. And CNM is often a little more flexible, and their hours are a little more flexible. And so I think we definitely pursue this with CNM as well, because they are doing quite, a lot of people think they don't do anything with teaching because they're a 2-year institution. That's really not true at all. They're retraining some of our teachers in various areas. And so, we continue to work with UNM, but I would really be interested in talking with CNM, what they might help us put together that might be a career pathway that would actually lead into CNM, an associate's degree, and then on to a 4-year degree. So we will look into that.
Thank you, Dr. Cleveland. I think Catherine had something more.
Sorry. Yes, thank you. Actually, and Dr. Cleveland is quite right. In Colorado and Texas are really far beyond what we are in New Mexico. And until the state gets on board with this and start providing funds and actually a clear path as well, they're very clear through their programs throughout the state for guidance for the schools. Instead of the schools coming up with all these programs and having it submitted, I mean, they definitely have a good path. So until that comes about within New Mexico State Legislature, I see that it will be piecemealing this across the state. And it's unfortunate, and the funding really needs to take priority because they do know that so many of the trades industry, they're going to be retiring here. And there's just not the people the students replacing them at the fast enough level to what we're going to be seeing. So I think we got away from the trades for so long as a pathway for some of our students. And I think like you said, we all need to be involved with that and talking to our legislators to say that, we really need to start funding this. And it's not just here locally, but throughout the whole entire state. So I appreciate that. And I am going to send you Dr. Cleveland and Carl Leppelman. I just found one that was in Colorado Springs, a 46,000 square foot building that they did for a joint program. So when you're trying to figure out 20 or 50, and it's range, but I'll send that on over to you right now.
Great. Thank you. Copy Melanie too, Archivec on that. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Awesome. I have one more question too. So with the current offerings that we do have, what do we do to help our students to know about these programs? So when they go into school, maybe it's their freshman year or middle school, like how do they actually learn about these programs and think about if it's something that they want to do?
Well, in the past, Benton and I have gotten into about 127 classrooms before registration. We've talked numerous classrooms at all the high schools. The problem we have right now is that communication piece. How do we get this information out? This is what we're talking to counselors. Benton has a meeting with the district counselors on Wednesday. We have put posters together, flyers together. We have virtual flyers that we're going to be posting. We're going to get all this information to the counselors. We're talking to counselors. How do we get this out to students? This is the problem that we have right now in the situation we're in. Before, we would get out to the classrooms and we'd talk to the classrooms. And that was easy in the sense that, yeah, you're talking, to literally 70 classrooms in each of the big schools and more in the smaller schools, some more. But now it's trying to get this information out. So we're working with counselors right now to do that. That's what I can tell you. Benton put together flyers. He's put together all types of information that we're getting out to them. We're doing screencastify the videos.
Video.
And so we're doing videos on them, posting those as well, getting that information out. So we're trying to hit every avenue that we can even think of. This has made you.
I was going to add to that, Dave. Just to, we did so many presentations, both all the CT programs at both the schools as well as dual credit programs. I think when we added up all our dual credit presentations and our regular CT presentations, it was over 200 presentations. And we put together a website that kind of pulls it all together, summarizes everything. We got refrigerator magnets. We're doing videos. We're having those brochures done, posters, banners, because we realize that you talk to kids and they're not really, talk to a freshman, they're not real sure what you're talking about. We talk about CTE program. So we know that's probably one of the most important initiatives we have, is to change that and to make sure kids from the middle school level on up, they know what a CTE program is and they know what we have to offer. We're really working hard on that front. We know we got a long way to go, but we want it to be, we want those CTE programs to be household names and kids to really know what's available to them and the careers that they can lead to.
At a United Way meeting not too long ago, this was the topic of conversation. And they were talking about so many companies won't even look at us because we don't have a strong trades program and a good workforce. And we're almost, unlike a lot of other areas, we're almost having to create that out of families that have never done this kind of work. And so they don't know. Whereas in other parts of the country, maybe their father, their grandfather, others did this same kind of work. You have the unions, the journeymen, all of the process in place. And so it's almost starting from scratch with some of our students to build this type of workforce. And yet we've got to do it, or New Mexico is never going to move forward. We're never going to be able to build the economy that we want to build. So the conversation was it's critical work and it's important work. We have to understand, sometimes we talk about, you have to kind of learn when you're the first generation to go to college because the families haven't done that. And so it's not really part of the conversation. It's the same here. You have to begin to open those doors to kids. So maybe their families haven't done it and kind of show what opportunities are there. But it is critical to our economy. And you see the difference. I mean, I taught in a district, it was on the Houston Ship Channel. The industries, the trades, all of that had just been built over many generations. They have a whole easier time in getting it started than we do. But it's important that we do it. And it's important not only to those individual students, but our state's economy and our state's future. And so I know all those 200 plus presentations probably got really, really old before you got done. But you almost have to do the high touch in order to get our students aware of what these great opportunities are. And it is a tremendous amount of work to do that.
Yeah, Dr. Cleveland, we talked earlier, I know this is going longer than we thought, but we were talking about bringing people from the industry, maybe video, we talked about Screencastify. People have actually done the work and they might talk differently. Right now in a remote setting, it's hard to, obviously you'd have them at the school, but that might be an opportunity, Benton, to maybe have some of our partners be a part of that in talking with the students in terms of what they do and how they got there, whether it's computer science or whether it's automotive.
I was gonna say we've got David. We were doing all the job shadowing and internships back in the last year, and we really had some good things in store. And Paul Lockhart had worked really hard setting up a bunch of job shadowing and and everything, came to a screeching halt. And David said, well, hey, why don't we interview these people and post, ask them about their jobs and their careers, post them on our website. And so we've got, oh gosh, I don't want to over exaggerate here, but we got about 30 of those interviews on our website. And
That's fantastic. Great.
From, and Dave, you can help me out here, but we got firefighters on there. We got master automotive technicians on there. We have, people in the IT industry program. We've got I'm
People from James
spacing a
Corporation.
few of them right now. Yeah, from
James Corporation,
construction,
Micron,
electrician.
Union, AGC. We have a really neat lady from who's electrician, has her own company and started her own company, and we have people from AGC. I mean, there's just a ton of different people. Carpenters Union, James Corporation has some of their CAD people on there, as well as some of their marketing people, not just construction, but James Corporation is really huge. They have their own nurse. They have their own nurse practitioner that works for the company. So there's a lot of different fields out there, and we do have a lot of those videos.
That's awesome. I kind of think maybe we should use our students, ask them to post things to their Instagrams, maybe the key clubs and stuff like that. See if we can get it out there. I mean, even right now they have these Google Meets, every day. I wonder if one class period you could take 5 minutes and make a commercial or something like that. So, because it is a fantastic program. I think that we definitely, coming from a family where my dad was a builder, we need skilled laborers in New Mexico. We really, really are in need of that. And I love when Coleman's thought with, getting EAs and all of those different things. I think it would be it's so beneficial. And I really think it's the future of our education here in New Mexico if we can build this program. So thank you for your presentation tonight. Anyone else from the board, or Ben, if anyone who wants to say anything else?
I was just going to say it is just my honor and privilege to work every day with David Latham and Susan Jaramillo and Paul Lockhart, and we work with Carl a lot on this, and I just really appreciate all those people and excited about the future of CTE.
We are excited.
Yeah, thank you so much. Anyone else have anything? When I saw your hand was up, was it just, did it went back down? You have anything else? So to make sure we don't miss you. Okay.
The only thing, and I know it's gone longer than we all had planned. The only thing that I would just say that I also think that it's worth addressing that how we're marketing it to parents, as they might be kind of the one that can maybe direct students if they're just not quite sure. So I don't know if there's even the ability to put it on, for example, like I think of the page on our website, like Power School, or just kind of those places where parents would be looking as a way to go ahead and kind of communicate the programs.
Yeah, and all us old people, we're all on Facebook, so that's always a good spot to use too. Is there anything else, Dr. Cleveland? Did you have anything else? Or I see Benton has another thing. Go ahead, Benton.
I was just going to say, and I'm sorry, I don't want to talk too much here, but we've done so much work on this website, and if you go to the rrps.net homepage and you click on schools, the very first link under there is our CTE website. And I know that's one of the things that getting exposure to that website is something we need to improve on. So
there it is.
Just want to plug that.
Sure, Beth is on here, so she can get that out on her Facebook.
And I'll put it up on mine. I'm happy to put it on my personal one. This is a great website. How long has it been up now? Is it, because it wasn't up for a while, for earlier this year, right?
It's probably, and Dave, you might help me out here, but it's probably been up for a couple of years.
Oh, okay.
It goes through, I mean, it changes weekly. And we changed it a lot, and we kind of figured out better ways to do it. And You know, sometimes it feels like we're the only ones looking at it, but you know, we take every opportunity to share it with people and with our teachers and administrators, and but it's a pretty good collection of information. I think I'm biased.
And I recognize some of those students. So thank you once again. Dr. Cleveland, did you have anything else you wanted to add before we?
I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation this evening, but also for the board. We often have so many things on our agenda that we can't really go into a program like this. And I think, it's really helpful and useful to have an opportunity to talk about the program and to answer your questions and to hear your thoughts and recommendations. So appreciate you taking this amount of time. I think it's really well worth it. And I hope it'll give you a better feeling of what we are doing, and we certainly hear some of your suggestions on how we might do some other things as well. So I just thank you for listening, but also thank you, David, Carl, Benton, for your work on this. Who've done a tremendous amount. And then just one quick thing: David's going to retire at the end of this year. I'm just downright peeved, and it doesn't make any difference. He's going to do it anyway. But I just don't want to miss an opportunity to tell you that. And certainly, he and Benton and Paul have been a great group to work together. But I just wanted to let you know that he is going to retire. His wife is a nurse and she's retiring. I think she's a nurse practitioner and is retiring. And so they've got other plans. But I just wanted you to be aware of that because of all of the work that he has done. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Cleveland. That makes me so sad to hear. You've been such a great asset. We need to stop having meetings where everyone's retiring.
We end on a sad note.
I know. I see Noreen Scott has something. Go ahead, Noreen.
I just wanted to ask Carl Leppelman. I'm on the website right now looking for the coding that we discussed, the computer coding, and I wondered where that falls in the CTE program. You told me that we had both robotics and coding, and I see robotics, but I don't see the coding.
Yeah. The coding is in Python. It also is in Project Lead the Way engineering, computer science.
Okay.
It's not listed specifically coding, but that's basically what they do. They either code or program within Python, the Python programming.
Great, thank you.
And there's some others we're looking at, like Red Hat's a good thing we should be looking at, but that's our focus right now. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for the presentation. It did go long, but it's because we're so excited about it. This is such a great program. And once again, David, that makes me really sad to hear that you're retiring, but I'm excited for you, not for us. So thank you, everyone. Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. For our last few items, we have to approve the consent agenda. Is there anything that needs to be moved off the consent agenda and discussed? And Dr. Cleveland, do you recommend approval of the consent agenda?
I do recommend approval.
This is Board Member Jeff Morgan. I second.
Okay.
Was there a play in that?
No. I'll make the motion and Jeff Morgan can have the second, or we can go backwards on that. Sorry. Here, how about let's start over. I make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Go ahead, Jeff.
Board Member Jeff Morgan was second.
Okay, thank you. Jane, can you take a roll call vote for us on that?
Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Cullen,
Yes.
Board Member Coleman,
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Appreciate it. And then for our business, consider approval of the December 14th, 2020 unapproved board minutes. Are there any changes that need to take place to those minutes?
I move approval of the board minutes.
Okay. Motion.
Board Member Jeff Morgan, I second.
Okay, in a second. Jane, can you take a roll call vote for us on the minutes?
Yes, I will. Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Cullen,
Yes.
Board Member Coleman,
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Okay, now we will go to Melanie Archibek. We will approve and discuss the district's 5-year master plan.
Good evening, Madam President Galbraith, members of the board, and Dr. Cleveland. So what I have in front of you, I just want to go over really briefly the 5-year master plan. It is actually a requirement that we have a current one in place in order to receive any awards from PSCOC. Our current plan expires this year in 2021. And so right before the winter break, I came to you guys. I was going after an award. We did receive it. So the state share is $117,544.48. I'm asking to approve the award. So it will require a signature. The terms of it is that I have to have it encumbered by the end of March. And so the plan is in the next 2 weeks, we'll be putting this out for bid. There is an approved list by PSFA that they would like us to utilize in terms of vendors that are available. And then from there, we have a year to complete the actual plan. And so we'll put together a steering committee and get that started immediately once we have a vendor approved. I stand for any questions.
Okay, board, is there any questions? Wynn Coleman, do you have any questions? Okay, Catherine Cullen. Okay, Noreen Scott.
No.
Okay, Jeffrey Morgan, any questions? Okay, Dr. Cleveland, do you recommend approval?
I do. I do recommend approval, and with a lot of thanks on pulling all this together. This was had a lot of challenges working with PSCOC and PED this year, but thank you for staying the course and getting it done, and congratulations on getting the award.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Melanie, for everything you do. You keep us all together all the time. I feel like your hands are in so much for what happens in our district, so we appreciate that.
I have a fantastic team. It's them, but thank you. I'll share it with them.
Please do. We appreciate that. Okay. I will entertain motions.
Melanie, this is board member Catherine Cullen. What motion do we need to do, because you need the approval of the funds, or it just says district 5-year master plan, but it needs to be more specific than probably that.
So I need acceptance of the award and the signature of Dr. Cleveland and President Galbraith. So I guess the action is to accept the award.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. Okay, yeah, it didn't clearly state on item B. Okay, so acceptance of the award for.
This is board member Noreen Scott. I move approval or acceptance.
Is that the correct language, Catherine? Do you want?
That's fine. It's just that she moves for the approval of the acceptance of the award for the 5-year master plan. And then I'll go ahead and second it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay. Jane, can you take a roll call vote for us on that?
Yes, I will. Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Cullen,
Yes.
Board Member Coleman,
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Jane. Before we get into advanced planning, anything else, Dr. Cleveland?
Well, just a note on that. I don't know if you all noticed, but the chair right now, PSCOC, is Joe Guillen. And so it's been really a nice thing, because he has a really good background, and he's done a really good job with that from what I've heard. So I just wanted to alert you to the fact that his name is on there, and that being the chair does move from individuals doing different things, but you all know him well, and you know that he brings that commitment to public school outlay. And so I just wanted to be sure that you saw that. But no, I don't have anything else.
All right, thank you, Dr. Cleveland. I did see that, and I'm glad you actually brought that up because I was wondering about that with the two different. So thank you for bringing that up. Okay, I'm going to go into advanced planning. So for advanced planning, January 18th is Martin Luther King Day. January 25th will be our next regular board meeting. And is there anything else before I? Okay, and so with that, we are adjourned for tonight. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.